In the fight for the U.S. Senate, Democrats are counting on Colorado to keep Senator Michael Bennet in his seat. So far, the polls are on his side. Republicans nominated County Commissioner Darryl Glenn, who's struggled to raise funds and get his name out to voters. Glenn bills himself as an unapologetic Christian constitutional conservative who opposes much of what the Obama administration has done. By contrast, Bennet supports liberal policies like the Affordable Care Act, same-sex marriage, and the DREAM Act. In a year dominated by the presidential race, Bennet supports Hillary Clinton, but Glenn has gone back and forth about supporting Donald Trump. We'll get the latest on that from both candidates as Bennet and Glenn go head-to-head in their only televised debate.
Live from History Colorado Center in downtown Denver, this is Decision 2016, Race for the Senate. Tonight's moderators are 9 News anchor Kyle Clark and 9 News political reporter Brandon Rittiman.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Clark.
And I'm Brandon Rittiman. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
We will be skipping commercials, and our audience will be skipping their applause for the majority of the night in order to maximize time for Democratic U.S. Senator Michael Bennet and his Republican challenger, Darryl Glenn.
But we are going to break that silence rule just one more time right now as we invite the audience to thank them for coming here and participating tonight.
Everyone who is watching at home on Channel 20 or on 9news.com right now has the opportunity to guide this debate and to weigh in on the issues that are being discussed. Go to 9news.com/vote now. Live polling will be appearing on the bottom of the screen, and you'll have the opportunity to choose one of the issues which will get an extended discussion tonight.
We alone chose the questions for tonight's debate. They have not been shared with the candidates in advance. And with that, let's get started.
Mr. Glenn, the first question is yours. In the last 4 days, you've had 3 different positions on Donald Trump. First, you supported him. Then you called on Trump to drop out after he bragged about sexually assaulting women. You said that Trump is, quote, simply disqualified from being commander-in-chief. And then you said, essentially, well, maybe I'll support him after all. Check in with me later this week. Once and for all, will you still support Donald Trump, who you said is disqualified from being president?
Well, first, thank you for having us here, and thank you, Mr. Bennet, for being here. You know, in honor of Yom Kippur, I think this is important when you start thinking about repentance. You know, I'm here because of a very strong woman. And what you saw over that period of time was real frustration and hurt, because we should never disrespect women. I grew up in a family with domestic violence, so anybody that actually puts a hand on or talks about women in that way, it's painful. But what you saw on Sunday, you saw an individual that actually made an apology. I'm a deep man of faith, and I think it's extremely important that if somebody makes an apology, my faith teaches me grace, mercy, and respect. So I've extended an invitation that's still out there to have a conversation with Mr. Trump, because I want to know what's in his heart. Because when we're out there campaigning about the issues that he supports, we're asked those questions. That's why I'm dedicated to doing that. And when he finishes and we have that conversation, I'll be able to address that question.
In fairness, though, Mr. Glenn, Trump apologized before you said that he was disqualified from being president. What happened after that moment is that he performed fairly well in the debate.
I guess I would say that his apology was not scripted. You know, when you're apologizing to somebody, one of the toughest things that you have to do is address family members. And Mr. Trump is part of the family. Some of the toughest conversations that you have with people with substance abuse, your family is there to actually call you on the carpet and show you a pathway out. And when he wants to actually be able to deliver that message, when I'm going into underserved communities, the number one question that's asked to me is, you know, he's made these statements. How do you know that he doesn't actually feel that way? My team and I have personal credibility if we're able to talk to him, and that's why I think it's important. So I actually want to be able to...
I understand the invitation.
Well, then
just to wrap this up, because you're obviously not going to tell us if you support Donald Trump or not tonight, and I don't want to waste the entire hour on that. But if I could ask a broader issue that speaks about values and about leadership. You've built the core of your campaign on the fact that you are a principled Christian conservative. So I have to ask you, What is principled Christian or conservative about supporting, abandoning, and then inching slowly back toward a man who degrades women and boasts about assaulting them sexually?
Oh, this is where a teachable moment about faith. Because if an individual actually says that they need help and they want to repent, then your faith teaches you to give them that opportunity. And what I'm trying to show him is grace as a member of the family. To be able to say, I want to learn from you what's in your heart. I want to share with you what I've learned on this campaign trail, because there are true problems that are suffering, that people are suffering from. And I want to be able to go out there and show him how your words actually mean things.
If he declines your invitation, are you done with him?
Well, the invitation is still out there,
Okay,
and we
thank
still
you,
have
Mr.
plenty
Glenn.
of time.
So we talked about 9news.com/vote now. You pull out your device, you type that in, 9news.com/vote now. Folks on screen will be weighing in on what they think might happen with the Iran nuclear deal, and I'm going to start by talking to Senator Bennet about it. You told us recently that chances are, quote, very high that Iran will cheat on the nuclear deal you supported. Now that struck me as an unusual answer, because usually when you do a deal, you do it in good faith. No one gets married expecting their partner to cheat on them, or hires a contractor expecting that they won't do the work. If you expected that Iran would act in bad faith, what does it say about your judgment that you work on a deal with them at all?
Well, with all respect, first of all, thank you for having me tonight. Thanks for doing this. And History Colorado, thank you. And to the audience at home, thank you for tuning in. And Commissioner Glenn, thank you for being here as well. With all due respect, there's no equivalency between signing a contract with somebody to do work on your house and doing a deal with Iran or the Soviet Union, for that matter. Trust doesn't enter into it. I don't trust Iran. I never did. I didn't trust them when we did the deal, and I didn't trust them now. Here's what I do know. Before we did the deal, Iran had 10 bombs of enriched uranium, enough to make 10 bombs in Iran. They were within 2 to 3 months of breaking out to a nuclear weapon. That's what the intelligence agencies have told us. Today, Iran has less than 1 bomb worth of enriched uranium. The plutonium reactor that they have in Iraq has been filled with cement and is inoperable. And they have inspectors from the IAEA all over the place looking at their nuclear program. So I don't trust Iran, and I think we should be pushing back every single day on the conventional threat. But with respect to the nuclear threat itself, that was the right vote. It was a difficult vote politically, but it was the right vote to do, and I'm glad I cast that vote.
So I want to follow up with one of the aspects that opponents also raise, which is, to them, it sends a dangerous signal that if our enemies are just belligerent enough, we'll eventually come to the table and give them something they want.
We didn't give them something they want. The money that they got as a result of this deal was money they would have gotten anyway, because the sanctions are multilateral sanctions, and the Chinese and the Russians were walking away. So the consequence of not doing a deal would have been allowing Iran to build a bomb in secret with the money from the released sanctions, and put the United States of America in the position of deciding when we wanted to attack Iran to prevent them from having a nuclear weapon. I'm glad we've done this without firing a shot. We have to be extremely vigilant, which is why I have legislation that would provide for congressional oversight to track the use of funds by Iran, to make sure we're sanctioning them for their ballistic missile tests. They are doing horrible things in Yemen and in Iraq and in Lebanon and in Syria. And it's hard for me to see, as we push back against those things, why we would be better off if they had a secret nuclear program that they were pursuing.
Senator Bennet, thank you.
Senator Bennet, another question for you. Hillary Clinton's recently leaked speeches to some powerful financial institutions have given us new insights on her unvarnished beliefs, including what she called her dream of open trade and open borders. And I'm curious, do you share Hillary Clinton's dream of open trade and open borders?
I haven't read the speeches, but I will say that I believe very strongly in free trade. I think as a country we've benefited mightily as a whole on free trade. There are groups of people in this country whose jobs have been displaced. We've not done a good job answering for that, and we need to do a much better job answering for that.
How about Clinton's dream of open borders? Open borders.
I don't know
what that. I
don't know what that means, and if you can define it for me, I'd be happy to answer.
It was her quote that her dream is in the hemisphere, open borders and open trade.
I don't know what that means, but as part of the Gang of Eight that negotiated the immigration bill that put 21,000 additional border security folks on the southern border and gave people a pathway pathway to citizenship here. I feel it's very important for us to have a secure border, and the only legislation that's passed either House of Congress since I've been there that has secured our border, or attempted to, was that piece of legislation. But going back to trade, if I can, just for a second, one of the things that really worries me about the debate we're having at the presidential level right now is that it's not just about, now if you listen, it's not just about trade agreements being bad, it's about trade being bad. I think that's not good for this country. We have a lot to do to benefit from trade, and what I don't want to do is allow the Chinese to write the rules of the road for the Pacific. I want the United States to be at that table helping to write those rules. TPP may have fallen short, but we shouldn't turn our back on the rest of the world.
And we'll continue that discussion now.
So Mr. Glenn, like Senator Bennet, you say you'd be a no vote on TPP as it sits today. But these deals, they always have winners and losers. That's why they tend to be done behind closed doors. And it's one thing to criticize that, but what concrete ideas do you have to open the process more and still actually get deals done?
Well, thanks for the question. But Mr. Bennet is Ivy League educated, and he was an attorney, and he knows what open borders are. He just does not want to address that issue. I would like him to at least commit to saying that he will oppose the open border concept. We all know it's
I'd be happy to answer it if you define
common open borders mean clear access to this country without going through a legal immigration process. And that's exactly what Ms. Clinton is actually wanting us to do, open borders. We all know what common language is, ladies and gentlemen. And this is what frustrates people about politics. Common sense does prevail. If somebody tells you open borders, it's like open door. If you leave your door open in your house, what does that mean? Your door is open, and that's exactly what she wants to promote. And what I would like Senator Bennet do is to commit to making sure that he will oppose his party's nominee in her stance to open borders.
Should the trade deals be opened more? Should the process be more open, and how would you do it?
Free trade is extremely important, and I am opposed to TPP. One of the things that we need to make sure that we understand is we cannot give up our sovereignty. There's a provision in Article 27 that creates a commission of unelected bureaucrats that are basically going to be able to adopt rules and regulations without the United States of America being able to actually intervene.
Really quickly,
I don't believe that is something that's very good.
Any substantive change you want to make to how these are done?
What we need to do is be very open and transparent and make sure that we're standing up for the will of the voters, make sure we're representing America.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glenn. Just a quick note, what folks are hearing at home that sounds like a very spirited drum circle are protesters who are beating on the outside of the building. We assume that they're probably in support of one of the half dozen minor party or unaffiliated or write-in candidates who are also in this race but are not on the debate stage tonight. 9 News uses a 10% threshold for entrance into debates, 10%, and 2 polls of the candidates choosing, of our choosing, excuse me. So the campaigns were invited to submit polls showing that they had support of 1 in 10 Coloradans to join on the stage tonight. Some folks are exercising free speech outside by using the building as a bass drum. We'll now go to a lightning round of questions, and if any point, gentlemen, you're unable to hear our questions, please just ask us to repeat, and we will do so. Brandon.
And I'm going to start with one that's yes or no. Should local governments in Colorado be allowed to ban fracking with voters' approval? Senator Bennet?
No.
Mr. Glenn?
You need to repeat that, please.
Yeah, should local governments in Colorado be allowed to ban fracking with voter approval?
No.
Very good. And then, in your opinion, who was the single best and worst U.S. president of all time, Mr. Glenn?
I am a big fan of Abraham Lincoln.
And the other question?
And the worst president?
Yes, sir.
I think that's still to be determined.
All right, Senator Bennet.
I would agree. I'm going to agree with what Darryl Glenn said. I think Abraham Lincoln was the best we've had, and I'll wait for the worst. May I respond to what he said earlier about the open borders?
Let's hold on, see if we can return to that. I want to keep the lightning round going.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, anything that you guys want to revisit, you can at your own time later on. A few more quick questions. Senator Bennet, could you name a Republican that you recall voting for?
Yes.
Would you please name that Republican?
I won't.
You will not. And why is that?
I think who I vote for is my business, but yeah, I voted for a Republican.
Okay. And Mr. Glenn, you're completely off the hook now, but if you would like to name a Democrat that you have voted for, you're welcome to.
And again, I believe our votes are private. Even though I believe that there's been infringement upon our rights and liberties, I'm going to protect your sacred right to your vote.
All right, Mr. Glenn, what is the single biggest leadership characteristic that you do not have?
That I do not have?
That you do not have, that you wish you had?
Yeah, height.
Senator Bennett, the single biggest leadership characteristic that you wish you had.
I didn't hear the
He
answer.
said height.
Height. And what are you asking?
The single biggest leadership characteristic you wish you had.
I think I'm developing it, but patience.
Okay, very fair. Thank you, gentlemen. both for
My kids disagree with that answer.
Heads are shaking in the first row. Thank you, Senator.
All right. I believe you have the next question.
Indeed, this is a question to both of you in turn. Senator Bennett, will begin with you. The issue of refugees from the Middle East, specifically Syrian refugees, has been discussed at length in the presidential campaign. A 9 News viewer, Christine on Facebook, is curious about your stand about bringing more Syrian refugees into the U.S. and how to make the vetting process more effective. Does the U.S. have a duty to let in Syrian refugees, and should we change the vetting process?
I don't think we have a duty to let in Syrian refugees, but I think as part of the family of nations working together to try to deal with the horrendous refugee crisis in Syria, it would be better if we were willing to take some. And as you know, we've just taken 10,000. The burden of proof should never be on America. The burden of proof should always be on the refugee. The vetting process is very thorough. We should continue to review it and make sure that it's as thorough as it can possibly be, because people are reasonably concerned about people coming from that region of the world to the United States because of what is happening there. What I cannot support, what I have not supported, what I will not support, because I think it does violence to who we are as Americans, is to vote to ban an entire religion of people from the United States of America, or to ban all Syrian refugees from the United States of America. That is not who we are, and it's at times of difficulty when our values are the most tested. I was proud to take that vote on the Senate, and I'd take it again.
All right, thank you, Senator. Mr. Glenn, very similar question to you. Does the U.S. have a duty to let in Syrian refugees? And if you would apply a standard, what would be the standard you would apply? And please be as specific as possible.
The United States of America has a duty to provide for the safety and security of our citizens that are here. What I'm concerned about is the fact that we have not secured our border, and I think it's extremely important to make sure that we acknowledge that there are threats to the United States of America, and we have to have a way of being able to screen those specific threats. But here's an issue that I think is extremely important. I've spent a lot of time in our underserved communities. Our labor employment participation rate is a D. What the other side is particularly advocating is adding more people into the market to be able to compete with them, people that are not citizens of this country. When you start thinking about black and brown population, 1 in 5 are unemployed and underemployed, and that's very troubling. So I think it's something that we need to make sure that we understand clearly before we add more people into the greater Denver metro area, because it's going to hurt the very people that we're trying to actually help when you start thinking about their ability to have access to employment.
Mr.
That's
Glenn,
a reality.
do you support a religious test for barring immigrants?
That is overly broad. What you need to do when you're trying to find a threat, you need to be able to identify what your specific threats are and come up with a way of screening those. I do not support blanket bans. You know, as a person that has been in the military, I'm a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and you have to be able to use specific intelligence on how you're able to screen potential threats. And that's what we should be able to work on a bipartisan basis.
Mr. Glenn, thank you.
I want to explore the other aspect of Syria, which is the ongoing conflict there. Mr. Glenn, Donald Trump suggests that President Assad and Russia are our partners against ISIS in Syria. His running mate, Mike Pence, thinks we need to go right after Assad. Who do you side with and why?
You know what's missing is leadership, and that's why I'm in this race. You have a commander-in-chief, with all due respect, that has not clearly defined our role. We need to be working and have a better working relationship with our allies, working together. The reason why Russia has so much leverage out there is because America is not leading. And when America does not lead, our enemies fill that void. So the first thing that we need to do, and as a senator, I want to make sure that I'm working with the president to have clear lines of objectives and make sure that we're clearly identifying what our role is as far as national security.
Is
And then
Assad our
working with our
partner?
allies.
Is Assad our partner?
What we need to actually be able to do is clearly identify our threats to the United States of America.
I can give you one more chance to answer it. Is Assad our partner or not?
Well, what we need to do as a country is to be able to work with the military intelligence that's out there, work with our allies, and clearly identify what are the threats that are there, and then come up with a strategy to deal with that.
Did not hear an answer to that question in there. Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Senator Bennett, we're going to go back to...
Can I answer that question?
Let
me answer the question, because first of all, I'm so happy to hear Darryl Glenn first abandon the religious test. That's awesome, because we shouldn't have a religious test. He has supported in the past with Donald Trump, and I'm glad he's not anymore. Second, on immigration, let me just make clear again, I was part of the Gang of Eight in the Senate, 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans.
Let's not cover old territory. Did you want to talk about Assad in Syria?
And what I would say is he's an enemy not just of our country, but of humanity itself.
All right, thank you, Senator Bennett. And now a question to you. In another one of Hillary Clinton's leaked speeches that we've read over the last week, she said that terrorism is not a threat to America as it doesn't endanger our economy or our society. And that's not an uncommon theme that you'll hear on the left, the idea that the threat of terrorism is exaggerated because it plays upon people's fears. Do you agree with what Secretary Clinton said, that terrorism does not endanger our economy or our society?
Well, I don't think it's on the left or the right. I don't agree that it doesn't endanger our economy or our society. I think it is very important for leaders to keep in perspective what we face and to make sure we're working together on constructive solutions. But no, I would not say it's not a threat.
Where would you rank terrorism as a threat? That's a question that has been asked of candidates for a very long time.
Well, I think it ranks very high because it's in the public's consciousness. And it seems to me that it's the job of people that are responsible leaders to understand that fear, that very reasonable fear, and explain to people what we are trying to do to try to address it. So I hope later in this conversation we'll have a chance to talk about what's going on with ISIS, what's going on in Syria, the threat to our homeland, because people have the right to hear all of that and to make their own judgments about how safe we are. I believe that there's a lot of work that's been left undone at making sure that our country and our allies are safe from this terrorist threat.
Senator Bennett, thank you. Now an opportunity for you to engage with one another once again. Appreciate the respectful engagement so far. Everybody's being careful not to talk over each other so the people at home can hear at least the best they can with the drum thing going on. Mr. Glenn, a question for Senator Bennett.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out if my mic is on with all the yelling.
I promise
and
you
That's
it
not
is.
such respectful engagement, but it is their First Amendment right.
Yes, it is their right to do that. But Senator Bennett, what I would like to find out is during the Iran nuclear debate, the Republicans brought forward a resolution to actually oppose that. Why did you filibuster that?
Well, probably because I supported the Iran deal. And I was voting yes on the deal that I think has made the United States more secure for the reasons that I said earlier, has made our allies, Israel, more secure, has meant that we are trying to face down the Iranian conventional threat in the region, which is extremely dangerous, without the immediate threat of their acquiring a nuclear weapon.
But didn't you stand for people being able to vote? And you talk about the obstructionist of, how inefficient government is. Why wouldn't you allow that vote to occur? Even though if the president said he was going to veto, don't you think that should have been able to go up for a vote?
I'd need to remember the timing of it, but I think probably the reason was that I thought it was incredibly important for us to get to that vote because the entire rest of the world, as you may remember, Darryl had endorsed the deal. They were waiting for the United States Congress to finish the deal. And the deal couldn't go into effect without it, in which case the Iranians would have gotten the sanctions relief, that is to say, the money that was parked in China and India and other places, and they would have been able to build a bomb in secret. I did not think that was in the interest of the United States.
Well, is the $400 million, do you consider that ransom payments? And then now that Iran has access to billions of dollars that they're using to beef up their military, to potentially put our men and women in harm's way.
Put a question mark on it, please.
Do you still stand by that?
So let's be clear about the facts. The Iranian military was very much against this deal because they were benefiting from the black market that existed in Iran when there weren't sanctions to be relieved, from the corrupt market that was there. Second, there is nothing that I have heard that suggests that this payment that you described was ransom. The policy of the United States of America is we will not ransom hostages. We must not ransom hostages. I agree with that. And finally, in fairness, the amount of money that has been sent is actually far less than was believed to be sent when we voted on the deal. But I'll say this, I'm a person in Congress who's written legislation with people that have supported the deal and opposed the deal to make sure we're tracking that money.
All right, we don't need a speech, but I do have one last question.
I think we've covered that ground. If we have time, we'll do another round of questions. Senator Bennet, your question for Mr. Glenn.
Just for clarity, I thought it was one question, but he had four.
But no, here's the good news. Every journalist friend, you're going to get a couple of follow-ups like he did, so go right for it.
So what I'd ask, I actually want to go back to the Trump discussion because I think you changed the subject. You talk a lot about leadership in the Senate. When the vote's in front of you and people are asking about voting on Syrian refugees, and that's the topic, shifting into competition on jobs is not the answer. Similarly with Donald Trump, he clearly apologized before you said that he was unqualified to be the commander-in-chief, which I agree with, and I think your position was a strong one that night. Then you changed it because you said on Fox television that you were persuaded by his attacks on Hillary Clinton, among other things saying he would put her in jail if he were president of the United States. I wonder what really changed, because as the father of three girls...
Let's ask you a question.
Because as the father of three daughters, I didn't hear an apology. What I heard was somebody justify what he had done by calling it locker room language or locker room behavior. I don't believe it is locker room language or locker room behavior.
All right, let's let Mr. Glenn respond. You've made the point. Let's let Mr. Glenn respond.
And this is an area where we actually agree, because we both have daughters. But what's different here, and where I say where leadership is, where Donald Trump is a member of the Republican family. And what I'm showing is I will actually call out a member of the Republican family. But Hillary Clinton has done so many things, has lied, there's a whole list of things that are coming out. And where are you at? You have yet to stand up and say anything. People are saying, where's Michael? When are you going to actually hold Hillary Clinton accountable to the things that she's doing wrong?
These are my questions, and my answer is I've endorsed Hillary Clinton, and I'm standing here and answering that question. These guys have asked
and I had endorsed Donald Trump, but he did something wrong, and I called him out on it. Hillary Clinton has been caught lying. Hillary Clinton has given away classified information.
I need some help from the moderators because I answered every question. My question is, on your terms with respect to leadership, don't you owe it to these questioners to answer whether or not you've endorsed Donald Trump? Because your answer has been to invite him to Colorado to have a town hall meeting. Clearly,
I'm happy to answer that, but you're giving a speech.
Great.
I have absolutely suspended my endorsement of Donald Trump, and here's why. Because my faith teaches me if somebody ask me
no speeches, Darryl. You said no speeches.
I'm answering the question.
No,
I'm answering the question. He asked me why. You know, and again, it's about repentance. It's about talking to a family member that's done something wrong and looking them in the eye and saying, look, I want to help you with this. And then if you can actually convince me that you've done that, then I can invite you back in. But it doesn't sound like you're willing to extend that, but you won't even call out Hillary Clinton that has given away classified information.
Mr. Glenn, thank you. All right, Mr. Glenn.
I think I get it.
All right. Listen.
Don't I have an additional question?
That was nearly as exciting as the drumming on the building. We hope to return to questions of the candidates by one another later in the debate. Thank you.
We'll try and keep things moving here. Again, our viewers right now are weighing in on their thoughts of the future of Obamacare. If you want to take part in that, it's 9news.com/vote now. You can type that into any device. And as they answer the question, Senator Bennet, on Obamacare, Governor Hickenlooper recently told me, obviously it's not working the way it is. In Colorado, people who buy plans on the state exchange are looking at a 20 to 40% price hike next year. Your vote for Obamacare led to it. Are you sorry for how it's played out for those people? And more importantly, how can you assure them you're going to get the cost of those individual plans under control?
Well, of course I'm sorry when anybody's health insurance costs go up. We had huge problems with our health care system before we passed the Affordable Care Act. We have huge problems today, especially in rural parts of Colorado where there's not enough of a market, there's not enough competition. For 7 years, I've said there's not enough transparency in our healthcare system, not just insurance, but what hospitals cost, what doctors cost. We need to do a much better job of doing that in order to drive down costs. So what I believe is that we should be working in a bipartisan way to not just deal with the healthcare bill, but deal with healthcare generally in this country, and that's what I've been trying to do, and that's what I will intend to do. What I'm not for doing is repealing the Affordable Care Act. Over 500,000 more people in Colorado have insurance today than had it when we passed the bill. People with pre-existing conditions who could be denied insurance no longer can be. Lifetime caps are a thing of the past, and you can't be discriminated against just because you're a woman. So there are important steps forward, and what we've got to do is improve on it.
Well, what's the fix for the individual plans, though? You've got insurers leaving the marketplace, and the prices keep going
Well, you know,
up.
it's interesting. So I almost get no complaints in my office about Medicare. People that are on Medicare seem to do okay, and the doctors that are getting paid by Medicare seem to be all right. The complaints that I get every single day are from people who have paid their premium month after month after month to a private insurer, then their kid gets sick, they seek to get a claim fulfilled, and the insurer just keeps them on the phone until they relent, until they give up. That's clearly a broken system. I believe back when we passed this the first time, that we should have a public option for our health, for people to be able to choose from if they want that, and I still believe that. My opponent doesn't believe.
So you think the competition from a public option might make
I think
them
we
do
need
better?
more competition for private, nonprofit, and public.
All right.
My opponent believes that the federal government has no role to play in health care.
Senator Bennet, thanks.
Yeah.
And Mr. Glenn, you'll get a chance to bite at this too, because we're talking to you about Obamacare as well.
Please.
At the same time that we learned those marketplace plans were getting more expensive, we also learned that the employer plans, which is what most people have, they're staying pretty much the same price. How would you change the system without disrupting what is working about our healthcare system
Well,
today?
and I want to respond to something that Senator Bennet stated. He's talked about complaints in his office. That's a key point because it's complaints in his office. If he would actually leave his office and come home and talk to people in Moffett, talk to people in Routt County, talk to people on the Western Slope about the true pain that they're suffering when they're looking at a potentially the 20 to 40% premium increase. He keeps talking about health care. This is about health insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to go back and use a little common sense. Because when you're out there trying to purchase a good or a service, does it make sense to create a system that actually decreases competition? If you actually want to be able to have a higher quality product at a cheaper price, you need to have a system in place that actually encourages competition. That's why we need to actually repeal the Affordable Care Act, but immediately have something to replace it with when it comes to competition across state lines. We need to have some tort reform. We need to be able to make sure that we're doing things to encourage the market to grow.
Mr. Glenn, the polling would suggest that you have been unable to fundraise to a level that would make you competitive in this race. I asked you about your lackluster fundraising during the primary debate, and you said that there were these great secret fundraising numbers that were going to come out and prove that I had asked a bad question, that you were in good shape. Well, the secret's out, you finished dead last in fundraising. Why mislead Republican primary voters before they nominated you?
You know, and you judge things on fundraising. You know what's beautiful about this whole thing?
I'm asking you a question about honesty. Those voters were relying on your honesty, and you told them that your numbers were going to be great and you could compete.
You're assuming that I'm here because of fundraising. I'm here. You equate millions of dollars as special interest money and comparing that with Michael Bennet with what he has. You know, I'm the most proud of the people that have written me a check for $25.73. Why? Because they're hurting, and that was the last part of their budget, but they believed enough in me to be able to give me. So please do not disrespect all those people. Go in there and look at the number of people that have contributed to my campaign, that have used their last bit of dollars because they've been praying over my campaign, because they understand that unlike my opponent, I'm actually going to come out there and talk to them. I'm going to hug them. I'm going to cry with them. I'm going to pray for them. I'm going to make sure that people understand that they're going to have a voice in Washington instead of having somebody that continues to vote 98% of the time with the administration.
I understand what you're saying about the importance of fundraising or the investment of small donors. Again, my question was, why did you mislead Republican voters into thinking that there are these great secret fundraising numbers that weren't actually there. You knew that wasn't true when you said it before the primary. That's what I'm asking you about.
The premise of your question makes it seem like that we misled anybody. We were able to absolutely fundraise. We did a great thing. And you know what's beautiful about this whole thing, ladies and gentlemen? It should give you confidence in the process that while I raise the least amount of money, I'm here. And I beat a lot of opponents. And Michael Bennet is the only person that I know that can spend $2 million in a campaign, in a primary election, and be the only name on the ballot.
All right, Mr.
So
Glenn,
who do you want to actually manage your money?
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
So our viewers are actually going to get to choose the next question here, or at least the topic for it. If you haven't yet, type in 9news.com/vote now, and you can participate live with us to pick the topic. You'll decide between another question on Trump versus Clinton. We also have infrastructure questions and education. So those are the three topics. Again, it's 9news.com/vote now. We're going to keep the polling open for just a moment here and look at the results. Again, do you want a question about the presidential race, Trump versus Clinton? Would you like to hear the candidates on stage talk about infrastructure, or would you like to hear them talk about education? And we are going to go on to a question about infrastructure, which handily won that, believe it or not. And this question will be to you both, and it comes from 9 News viewer Julie on Facebook. It's a rather simple one. Mr. Glenn, we'll start with you. Do you have any thoughts on how to fund America's aging infrastructure?
Well, absolutely. But the one thing we should not do is raise the gas tax. What we should do is make sure that the gas tax is being properly applied to transportation projects. And we need to make sure that more funding that's caught up in the federal government is given over to the states, because I'm telling you, as somebody that has been working transportation infrastructure projects since 2003, states are very innovative when it comes to being able to address those issues. I mean, all of us, I think, have been frustrated with sitting on I-25 and I-70 unless, I don't know, give me a raise of hands of people that like that. We clearly have issues that we must address. And what we need to be able to do is give states more of an influence over how to prioritize those transportation projects.
So you want it handled more increasingly at the state level?
There needs to be more flexibility at the state level to do that, because they are closer to the source of the issues. They can work with local governments. And I'm telling you, as a person that has been working as a city council member, on a county commission, we work these issues all the time. People are very innovative and very creative with coming up with solutions to transportation infrastructure projects. They just need the flexibility more in their hands.
All right, Mr. Glenn, thank you. Senator Bennet, same question. Any thoughts on how to fund America's aging infrastructure?
I mean, first of all, as you may know, we finally have funded a long-term highway bill after 23 or 24 short-term extensions, one which was just 2 months long, all done in the name of fiscal responsibility. I was pleased to have the chance to work with Senator Gardner to make sure we got that bill over the finish line and that Colorado got much needed money. When I'm out traveling the state, and by the way, Darryl, you keep attacking me for not traveling Colorado, I'll put my record up against any statewide elected official, including ones that don't have to go back to Washington, D.C., in terms of my presence all over the state of Colorado. When I travel across the state, we get in these conversations, these disagreements, and in the end I say, I don't know. You might be right about some of that, but here's one thing I do know. Because of something wrong in our politics in Washington, D.C., we don't have the decency as a generation to maintain the assets and infrastructure, the roads and bridges that our parents and grandparents had the decency to build for us, much less build the infrastructure my kids and your kids are going to need in the 21st century. Go stand on a deck of a boat in Hong Kong Harbor for 10 minutes and look at what the investment in infrastructure looks like compared to what we are doing. That is why I have worked with Republicans and Democrats and independents to draft legislation to repatriate money that's stuck overseas, bring it back to the United States, and build infrastructure. That cannot be done by one party
You're
alone.
well over your time.
It
I'm going
has
to follow
be
up
done
though real
in a
quick and
bipartisan
see if
way.
you agree with your opponent who raised the gas tax. Is an increase in gas tax off limits to you?
I don't think it makes sense at the moment, because we're moving to electric vehicles. We've gotten far more efficient cars on the roads than we had before. We do have to figure it out, and My answer to your question is my answer to your previous question, which is let's find a way to repatriate the $2 trillion that's stuck overseas and bring it back here and invest it in our infrastructure.
Senator Bennet, thank you.
And I want to clarify,
actually,
well, he misstated my position.
He said you raised the gas tax.
Thank you.
You raised that we should not raise the
Thank
gas
you.
tax.
Yeah, so
Okay, all right. Just want to make some crossover verbs there. All right, no, we're good.
That's an important one.
I understand.
I don't think there's anybody here who would believe you'd raise the gas.
Well,
that's very fair.
Let
All right.
the record be straight.
I hope that these will be shorter answers so that we have time to get to some more policy questions. But I want to ask you, Senator Bennet, do you believe that a lot of Mr. Glenn's supporters are deplorable, as Hillary Clinton said about Donald Trump's supporters?
No, absolutely not. How's that for a short answer?
That's a fantastic short answer. Mr. Glenn, let me ask you, it is undeniable that Mr. Trump's candidacy has ignited racist, anti-Semitic fervor in America. And you can quantify how large that is, but we all see it. Is that troubling to you, and do you blame Mr. Trump for any of that?
You know, what's troubling to me is Michael Bennet just admitted about the deplorable comment, but when it came time to actually call that candidate out that said that, he didn't do it. So are you willing to do that now? Are you willing to go on record and ask for Hillary Clinton and say that she was wrong? Will you say that?
I didn't have to because she said she was wrong. She apologized immediately, and it was a sincere,
you know what leadership
heartfelt
is,
apology.
ladies and gentlemen? Leadership is you don't need to take a poll. You don't need to wait. You actually do it.
All right,
you
Mr.
do it
Glenn.
when it happens.
I appreciate where you're both coming from. There's only so much time we can spend tonight arguing about what other people said and then apologize for. I do want to talk about both of you gentlemen.
My answer was 3 words long.
It was indeed 3 words long. A question to you, Senator Bennet. You have voted with the Democratic Party roughly 90% of your time in the Senate. You voted with President Obama roughly 96, 97% of the time. Would you expect that you would be in similar lockstep with a President Hillary Clinton and a Majority Leader Chuck Schumer if they were to enter those roles?
I don't know. You know, they do reviews of this over and over again, and this Washington math that adds up to 90%, or I've heard Darryl say 98% or 80%, doesn't capture the bipartisan work that I've done since I've been in the Senate, and it's why I have a reputation in Colorado and across the country for being one of the most bipartisan senators. My commitment to Colorado, which is a third Democratic, a third Independent, and a third Republican, is that I will continue to serve you in exactly that same way if I'm privileged enough to have another term as your senator. And my record, whether it's the work we did on immigration, the work on reforming the Food and Drug Administration, the work on the Farm Bill, the work getting rid of No Child Left Behind, has all been done with Republicans, because I believe it's my job to represent not just people that vote for me, but everybody in my state. Darryl ran an entire primary campaign saying that he was running against Democrats, he was running against evil. There wasn't a single Democrat elected official that he could work with. That the wide problem in Washington is that Republicans have been too conciliatory, too collaborative with the president. They wouldn't vote for Mitch McConnell to be majority leader for that reason. The Republicans in Colorado, by and large, don't believe that. And the Democrats and independents certainly don't. You cannot get anything done in Washington if you're unwilling to work with the other side.
We're going to continue to explore this topic.
Let me respond to that.
Brandon's going to ask you a question that's on the same topic.
And I'm going to still answer this question. So
I understand.
So,
let's listen to Brandon's question, and then you can roll it into your answer.
So, Mr. Glenn, and this follows right with what he was saying.
Yeah.
Early in your campaign, you said you're tired of hearing about Republicans reaching across the aisle. And when you talk about not working with Democrats, how does that lead to better outcomes, especially when you don't know who's going to control the White House or the Congress?
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because both parties have done a poor job with this. I will work with anybody that wants to put the country first and set aside partisan politics. Both parties are notorious for doing this. Now, let's do a little math, ladies and gentlemen. My opponent over here has voted in lockstep with the administration 97% of the time, but yet he says Washington is broken and in gridlock. So let's use a little common sense. If he's voted it with the administration 97% of the time on a bipartisan basis, things should be fine in Washington, right? That means everything's done. If you have a 97% success rate, using your own math and using your own theory that you've been bipartisan, then we should have budgets passed. We should be able to get everything funded. We should be able to deal with the threats to this country. You know what? This is one of the reasons why I want to repeal Common Core, because obviously we cannot use math here and common sense here when it comes to that. Let's be real, ladies and gentlemen.
Denouncing reaching across the aisle, though, how does that do anything about gridlock?
I'm denouncing the whole idea of Republicans and Democrats pigeonholing each other and trying to use leverage to be able to get their way. What we need to do...
In the primary, you were rather specific about the party.
I was specific with regard to his idea of being bipartisan is for the Republicans to support the Iran nuclear deal, to support the Affordable Care Act, to support the EPA regulations that are absolutely shutting down jobs in the Western Slope. That's his idea of bipartisanship. What I don't see him doing is actually leading, coming forward with solutions that are actually going to help grow the economy. He talks about repatriating money. The best way to do that is to reduce our corporate tax rate. So are you now going to support a reduction in our corporate tax rate to be able to bring those dollars back here so we can use those?
That's actually what my bill does. And let me just say that
So then you
Colorado,
support the administration?
let me just say.
I got to move us on to another question. If you want to use some of that time, you can. This has to deal with a similar topic anyhow. Jason, who's a 9 News viewer on Facebook, asked, I'm just going to read you exactly what he wrote. He said, unity. Our country is based upon it, and our presidential candidates continue to separate our country. I would like to know what each candidate would do to heal the divisiveness and bring unity to our country. Mr. Glenn?
What's his name, Jason?
Jason.
Jason, thank you for asking a very important question. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I do not like the tone of this campaign. I think it's extremely important to be able to bring community leaders, law enforcement, and when you start talking about policymakers together, because there are real differences that we must be able to talk about. And I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time in underserved communities. And as a person that has been stopped just simply because of my skin color, those pain, that's real. There are cultural differences that we must address, and we can only do that if we come together. And I believe that that's what's wrong and what's happening out there, and I know a lot of you are frustrated about it. We seem to be dividing this country, and I hope that Senator Bennet agrees with me that we're going to keep this race not about people's character. We're going to focus on the issues, because I don't think that's right. We live in the greatest country out there, but we need to be able to respect one another, and that's what I'm concerned about, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to that.
Senator Bennet, Jason's question was, what will you do to heal the divisiveness and bring unity to our country?
Let me say, Darryl finished by saying we need to respect each other. And I respect the voters of Colorado because I say the same thing to you in my primary elections that I say in the general elections. And what you've just heard up here is the exact opposite of what he said in his primary election. And I care a lot about that. And the reason, Jason, I care about that is I've worked really hard in the time that I've been in Senate to build bridges with people on the other side of the aisle, to actually get results for Americans, to get results for Coloradans. So there are people with cystic fibrosis and lung cancer and leukemia who didn't have drugs that treated their maladies before, who have them now as a result of the work I did with Richard Burr, a Republican from North Carolina. The work I did with Lamar Alexander, a Republican from Tennessee, never demonizing the other side, but working together to make things better for kids in their classrooms and teachers and principals in their schools. The work that I've done at a moment in time when we've had horrible rhetoric coming from the top of the ticket on the Republican side about immigrants to this country, to pass a responsible bipartisan immigration bill in the Senate. I have tried to set an example. The thing that I can't abide as somebody who has to go back there is people who just want their name in lights, who give a speech, who can't work with somebody on the other side.
Senator, you're over time, and I didn't hear an answer to Jason's question. There's a lot of anger because of what's going on in national politics right now. Anything you would say we ought to do to address that?
I think, in fairness, I gave you an answer, which is we should be sending people to Congress that don't play petty political games that divide us, but get up every single morning to work with their party and the other party to get work done. And with me, that's not speculative. That's what I've done over the last 7 years.
Thank you, Senator.
And you need to lead. And if you're
Mr. Glenn,
if
Mr.
the
Glenn,
person at the top of your ticket does something wrong, you should make a statement about deplorables. You don't need to wait for them
we've been down
to
that road,
apologize.
Mr. Glenn. Thank you,
You need
Mr.
to call them
Glenn.
on
We've
it
been
right
down that
now.
road.
That's
Next
what
question
leadership
comes
is.
to us from our partners at the Denver Business Journal. Ed Sealover from the Journal requested that we talk about what voters will still tell pollsters is the #1 issue in this this race: jobs and the economy. And first to you, Senator Bennet, if you could please cite 2 specific bills that you would advance that would lead the private sector to create more jobs.
Sure. The infrastructure bill I mentioned earlier had to set aside 30% for public-private partnerships. That's an important That's an important thing for the private sector. And the bill I just mentioned with the Food and Drug Administration. The companies that are developing these new drugs are all private companies. The problem they faced in Colorado and across the country was that they couldn't raise venture capital anymore in the United States. It was all going to Europe and Asia because of the regulatory uncertainty that was caused by the Food and Drug Administration. And I worked with Richard Burr, a Republican from North Carolina, to change the way that approval process works so that in the last 4 years, the estimates were, Kyle, that 1 or 2 drugs a year would be approved. 50 drugs have been approved, and we have gone from having, I can't remember the number of bioscience companies, but I think around 600 bioscience companies to 800, not because of that bill, but because we have a thriving bioscience economy here in Colorado that we need to protect.
Senator Bennet, thank you. Again, the question from Ed C. Lover of the Denver Business Journal. Mr. Glenn, 2 specific bills that you would advance that could lead the private sector to create more jobs.
And this is a clear area where we disagree because my opponent doubled down on his support for the Affordable Care Act. And when you're out there talking to small business owners, that is absolutely crushing them. We need to repeal the Affordable Care Act and immediately have a replacement in place. That's extremely important. The other thing that what I'm hearing out when I'm actually out talking to people, when you go out to Moffat County, when you go to Grand Junction, they need regulatory reform. The EPA regulations, the war on coal is real. You're shutting down an entire industry. We should be standing up for energy independence. We should be allowing all forms of energy to actually occur and allow the market to be able to dictate. But Mr. Bennet continues to have a war on coal, shut down communities, and then on top of that, he's going to double down on his support for the Affordable Care Act, which then has people trying to incur, and they're incurring a 20 to 40% premium increase. Think about trying to pay your bills when you've lost your job and your insurance premium has basically gone up 40%. These are the real stories that I'm hearing from people when I actually go out there and talk to them and not stay in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
A lot of folks wanted us to talk about guns a little bit tonight. Mr. Glenn, Donald Trump has repeatedly claimed that Hillary Clinton wants to abolish the Second Amendment, something she's never advocated. Is that over-the-top language, or do you yourself believe she literally wants to abolish it?
Maybe she shouldn't say that because I dispute the fact. She has made it very clear, and it was very eye-opening when it comes to her debate performance and the types of justices that she would support would absolutely infringe upon the Second Amendment rights for each and every one of you. So basically, if you're trying to say that she didn't say that, actions speak louder than the words. She continues to say that. She continues to try to threaten the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens, and that's just a reality.
And then there's interpreting and putting limits thereon, which exists today. I mean,
well,
do you think that amounts to wanting to abolish it if you want to limit it?
You know, with all due respect, I get confused with Hillary Clinton because first people are deplorable and now she wants to abolish things. Which one is it? And then she tells us that she actually didn't lose emails and that she didn't, she had a private server. And then she doesn't take responsibility for that. She's all over the map. So, you know, my concern is maybe we should be looking at her credibility. The one person that's not standing up and holding her accountable is Michael Bennet. It's like crickets.
Senator Bennet, hoping for some straight talk here on the issue of guns, specifically gun control. And 9 News investigative reporter Chris Vanderveen just did some really interesting research and work around the idea of guns and crime, looking at the numbers and not the emotions. So-called assault rifles are always the boogeyman. They're used in only 3 to 4% of gun homicides. And if gun sales stopped tomorrow, America would still have 300 million guns out there. So knowing that, honestly, what short of confiscation would actually make an impact?
Right. Well, first, I don't share Darryl's position here, which is that any and all restrictions on the Second Amendment are unconstitutional. No amendment is absolute. I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but I don't agree with that. I also don't agree with his observation that everybody in an audience like this ought to be able to wave their guns around. I don't think that's great when my kids are sitting in the front row. What I would support, and what I strongly support, is a national form of background checks that's modeled on the work we did here in Colorado. If you look in 2015, after that law was passed, there were roughly 300,000 people that applied for guns. 2.2% of those people were denied guns in Colorado, and among them were murderers, rapists, kidnappers, domestic abusers. And it's very hard for me to hear an argument that says we'd be safer if those folks didn't have guns.
Understand
I have
that,
fought
but would
hard.
it make a significant difference? Again, if you're not going to confiscate a gun,
That's a
there are
question
300 million out there.
First of all, I do think it would make a difference because it's kept guns in Colorado out of the hands of people that have committed those crimes. Sometimes what you hear people say is none of these laws would have any effect on what happened in Orlando or what happened in Dallas or what happened there. That's an excuse for not doing anything. And if we can keep the hands out of somebody with a background check, and by definition, I want to say this so that everybody's clear, by definition, that means it's not taking someone's gun away. This is at the point when somebody is applying for a gun.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for a couple of short answer questions before we get to your closing statements. I would like, Senator Bennet, could you name an issue you think is just overblown this election year?
Name an issue.
And something we're paying too much attention to.
I'll tell you one that we're not paying enough attention to. I'm gonna answer that question, and that's the education of the next generation of Americans. When you hear these debates at the presidential level, you hear nothing about what we're doing to support students and teachers and principals all across America
short
to give
answer
them an
questions,
opportunity.
Mr. Glenn.
And I'm glad he brought up education because he likes to distort my record. I support all choice options and vouchers, and I want to know whether or not Mr. Bennet will stand here and support vouchers, especially for people in the underserved areas that need that.
All right, we are out of time. We must go to closings now, so you each get your time by a flip of the coin. Senator Bennet will go first. 1 minute, sir.
How much time is it?
1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much for moderating the debate, and thank you for the audience that's here and the audience at home. It's been a great privilege to be your senator over the last term. It's not been such a great privilege every single day when there are people back there that by definition can't agree with the other side just because they might be Republicans or they might be Democrats. I have very little patience for that. I have a track record over the last 6 years that's consistent with the track record I had before I was even in politics, when I was in business and when I was superintendent of Denver Public Schools. And that's a willingness to work with absolutely anyone for the benefit of the next generation of Americans and the people that are coming after that. This is the most wonderful state in the most wonderful country in the world. And when I travel the state, it fills me with optimism. And what I want is a politics that's worthy of the aspirations we have for our kids and our grandkids. That's an example I've tried to set in the first term that I've been your senator. It's what I will continue to do if you give me that privilege again. I'd like very much if you cast a vote for me between now and November 8th.
And that's
Thank
time,
you.
Senator Bennet. Mr. Glenn, your closing statement.
First of all, I want to thank all of you very much, and I want to thank Senator Bennet for, we were talking about issues, and I'm hoping that we will continue to show that we can do this in a respectful manner, because I am concerned about the tone of this campaign. But I am so proud of each and every one of you. I've learned a lot. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, a retired lieutenant colonel. Service is my life. I'm a man of faith. And I learned the fact that when I was out there talking to you, that trust has been broken. And I want you to understand, and I'm asking you for your vote, because you can trust me, because I'm going to actually sit down and talk to you and go represent you and then come back home and be able to give you feedback. But I want you to be able to have confidence in the system. I know you're shaken. I know some people are scared. I'm here to tell you, believe in the fact that your vote matters. Believe in the fact that no matter what you're hearing at the national level, that we live in the greatest country on the face of this earth. I want to thank each and every one of you. God bless you. God bless this great state, and God bless the United States of America. I love your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Thank you, Senator Bennet. We are out of time. Our thanks to History Colorado for providing this beautiful space, to the staff for their hospitality and their willingness to allow the building to be beaten on nonstop by protesters for the better part of an hour. 9 News has 2 debates coming up. A week from tonight, Tuesday, October 18th, a debate on this year's ballot questions. And on Thursday, October 20th, the 6th Congressional District debate, Republican Congressman Mike Kaufman and his Democratic challenger, Morgan Carroll. Right now on the 9 News Facebook page, the 9 News political experts are beginning to analyze this debate, and that conversation will continue this evening on 9 News at 9 and 10. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. For Brandon Ritteman and the rest of us at 9 News, I'm Kyle Clark. Good night.